What if the root of your chronic fatigue, hormonal imbalances, anxiety, or even your weight struggles wasn't your food or your workouts, but your relationship with the sun? Today's guest, Jason Young, once thought he was the picture of health. Then his body and his life told him otherwise. But before we dive into this episode, you know what time it is. With me, y'all.
Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast.
Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, and I am here today with Jason Young. Jason, welcome to the Good Vibes Studio.
Thank you, Jovonnie. Pleasure to be here.
Yes. It's absolutely an honor. So, Jason, you are a fitness coach helping others look great, feel great, but in 2018, your health collapsed. What happened and how did you realize it wasn't your food or your workouts that could actually save you this time?
Well, it was basically because I was following the advice that I was giving to my clients, and my health was failing. So, late 2018 was when I made the transition, but it was going on probably 2015, 2016, 2017, and then I that was when I probably really started to look in and say what's going on, because when you are a fitness coach, you're expected to help people get healthy, and when you're not, that's, for me, it's an issue. And especially when I was in my late 30s, and when you have hormone problems and you're a guy in your late 30s, that's not supposed to happen. So I was following what I've considered the perfect diet and the perfect workout routine, working out 5 days a week. I was following a ketogenic cleanse, paleo type nutrition style and whatnot. But it just kept getting worse and worse. My energy kept getting worse and worse. Sleep kept getting worse and worse. And eventually I had to just look elsewhere. And that was when I was reintroduced to Dr. Jack Cruz for the second time. I originally found him in 2013, but I just wasn't ready for his message, because I still had all the fitness programs, supplements, nutrition programs to sell people and whatnot. And 2013, I really wasn't feeling off, so to speak. Because I always say fitness and nutrition can be kind of like a Band-Aid, but eventually the Band-Aid can't hold what's underneath. So the gash underneath the Band-Aid basically opens, and then stuff start squeezing out, and that's when you start blaming age and blaming other things other than what's actually going on. And that's when I found the circadian rhythm, circadian biology, mitochondrial health, and all that stuff.
So let's take it back to the late 30s, and you're a man having hormonal issues. What were some of those signs or those signals that your body was telling you that this is a hormonal issue? And then there was something else you said I want to break down, but I wanted to get to that aspect first.
Yeah. Well, basically my schedule back then was basically I would wake up at like 4:30 a.m. I had a class at 5:15 a.m. and sometimes I would work out before the clients got there. Sometimes I'd work out with them, and most of the time I would work out after them. But 5:15 was my first class. Then I'd have a 6 a.m. class, and then I would typically have go home. I'd have a 9:45 a.m. class, and then I'd go home again, and then I would have a 5:30, 6:30, and 7:30 class. During that afternoon class, driving to it, so it was about a half-hour drive, I started basically having to have like boxing matches with myself, because I was basically slapping myself, punching myself to stay awake on that drive. I could not do it. And I would have to, sometimes I'd have to take a nap before the clients got there for the afternoon class. Sometimes I would take a nap in between. It was just overall tiredness, fatigue, lethargy, just not feeling myself, especially that afternoon. But and then it would eventually pass, and then I'd be wired for the rest of the night, and I couldn't get to sleep. So it was basically, I always say that welcome to adulthood, where you're tired all day except when you need to go to sleep. So it was tiredness, and my sleep was hugely affected. So usually when sleep is affected, cortisol and melatonin is off. So I discovered through self-discovery, self-research, that I had upside down cortisol and melatonin levels. So when cortisol is supposed to be rising in the morning, melatonin is supposed to be lowest, and then they basically switch at night. So at night, melatonin is supposed to come more out to help us get into the deeper stages of sleep, and cortisol is supposed to be as low as possible. But when cortisol spikes for some reason, modern living, eating too late, all that stuff, then melatonin will drop, and we're not able to get into the deep stages of sleep, and we're not able to basically repair ourselves, regenerate ourselves. So basically you're having like superficial levels of sleep. So you're sleeping, but you're not really sleeping, if that makes sense. And so then you wake up, you need coffee, you need caffeine, you need simple sugars, you need something to get you going, get you through your day and whatnot.
Okay. I thank you for walking us through that, because I think there's plenty of people who could resonate with being fatigued, having that lethargy, feeling like they had enough rest, but then, you know, you get to a certain day, like you were exercising. So clearly the endorphins were already flowing. You were up, your body was up, you were moving, you was grooving. But then having to slap yourself while, you know, you're driving just to kind of stay awake. And I love the breakdown between like the cortisol and your melatonin, and knowing that something is off. And I kind of want to get into, what did you end up having to do to address that? Because some people just say, oh, well, I just have insomnia, when it could be your hormones. You know, when you took that deeper dive and did a little bit more research in it, what actually helped you out in regards to that? And then I kind of want to go back to, because you just mentioned the food again, how the ketogenic and the paleo diets wasn't enough, even when it came to the hormones that you were having to swip and swap, because they weren't regulated the way they needed to be to allow you to go through the day.
Yeah. So the number one thing with in terms, when you have a broken circadian rhythm, and if you have hormone issues, you're going to have a circadian rhythm issue. But the number one thing in regards to your circadian rhythm is the sunrise, and seeing the sunrise with naked eyes. So no sunglasses, no contacts. If you do have eyeglasses, you basically pull them down the bridge of your nose, you take them completely off, because we want that sunlight going into the eye, because our master circadian clock is right behind the retina. So it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or the SCN for short. And that light needs to go into the SCN, and then that's going to be transferred basically all over the body. It's originally going to send it to the anterior pituitary gland, so it's going to turn on the proper hormones. So like all the sex steroid hormones get turned on. Your T3, your thyroid gets turned on. LDL cholesterol goes on to create pregnenolone, and then from pregnenolone you get basically testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, vitamin D. Even though vitamin D is not out at sunrise, it's basically like a warm-up signal saying, hey, vitamin D, get ready, and all that stuff. And then all those hormones get turned on in the proper amounts. But what most people do is the first thing they grab is their phone, which has like an alien sun on it, and so that spikes their cortisol. So cortisol is naturally supposed to rise in the morning when we're sleeping. It's supposed to help us basically wake up. But when we spike it unnaturally, then we start doing unnatural things, and finding ways to find energy rather than the natural source, which is the sun.
I like the way that you took us through the pathway and how things are activated when it comes to the light and when it comes to the artificial light or the alienated light. But something I remember you telling me is that you changed your environment. Like you kind of took the Wi-Fi out. You talked about the artificial lights and the screens, but how does that actually harm our mitochondrial health, that Wi-Fi being so close, and even hit on those AirPods that you wanted to kind of discuss, because I think it all kind of relates to this aspect of the conversation.
Okay. Well, basically, there's like natural EMFs, so that's like the sun, the rain, the wind, all that stuff, and then we have like the unnatural stuff, the non-native EMF, the man-made stuff. So I like to think of it like, so Earth's heartbeat is known as the Schumann resonance, which is it varies, but typically it's at 7.83 hertz, which coincidentally is the same brain wave as your alpha wave in your brain. So think of 7.83 hertz. Let's just round it up to 8. So just think of that as 8 cycles per second. And then you have Wi-Fi, which you've got 2 frequencies. You've got the 2.4 gigahertz and you've got the 5 gigahertz. So 2.4 gigahertz is actually 2.4 billion cycles per second. So 2.4 billion versus 8 is quite a jump. And our body, our mitochondria, is not made to handle that. So it kind of messes up the signaling, because that's like the ultimate thing inside. If our cells can't communicate, they can't talk to each other, mitochondria can't talk to each other, then there's going to be breakdown. So it's like if your listeners can only hear like every 5th or 6th word that we're saying, they're probably going to turn it off because the message isn't going to get through. So the same way with non-native EMF. So it basically just interrupts with the cellular communication, causes cellular dehydration and mitochondrial dehydration. So basically our bodies are 99.9% water molecules. And if those water molecules, they can't connect to the next section or down to the foot, up to the brain, down to the hand, all those places, then certain things are going to happen. So like the worst thing that happens with the non-native EMF is calcium efflux. So calcium is supposed to be highly regulated inside and outside the cell. But when we're around too much non-native EMF, it effluxes from the cell, and that causes the communication to basically change. So instead of saying, "Hey, we're in a safe spot," it now says we're in a danger zone, and then it starts creating more stress chemicals, cortisol, the cytokines, the NF-kappa beta, all that stuff comes out, and then it's just like an inflammatory cascade. So inflammation is the start of all disease, and if you just let that inflammation keep festering, then you're going to get more signs and symptoms, and then eventually full-blown disease if not taken care of.
I absolutely love that breakdown, and I appreciate the visual and the example of saying, if we only heard every 5 or 6 words when someone is speaking, what does that look like? Like that made it click for me, because if you don't know like all the different terms and the pathway that you were talking about and how it's activated and how the system kind of works, you kind of got lost. But everyone understands when you're trying to listen to someone and the signal is going bad on the phone and you're only catching every 5 to 6 words, it's hard to get that context in regards to what's actually talking about. But you kind of hit on something in regards to inflammation. So I got to let y'all know about a product. So y'all, this episode of the Empowered Place, Empowered Lives podcast is sponsored by my signature coaching services, where I help you uncover the hidden root of your symptoms, like chronic stress, toxic habits, and survival mode routines that you have normalized, y'all, using a holistic anti-inflammatory method tailored to your rhythm and your true reality. So you could try to figure it out on your own, but without seeing those blind spots, you'll keep repeating the cycle. So thank you for Vibrations for sponsoring this episode. So Jason, getting back into the conversation, cellular communication and dehydration. That's what's happening to our bodies. How do we get it rehydrated? And how did you make the adjustments to now better sleep and have those things kind of swapped for you? And how did you know that taking the Wi-Fi out actually like made a difference? Like, what did that difference look like you to know it was that?
But it wasn't necessarily the Wi-Fi, because that's not what I started with. And like some of the things that I do now, like if we were to take like a normal person off the street, they would think that I'm completely insane. So everything was implemented one step at a time, because if I didn't do that, I would probably not be married as well anymore.
So let's start there, Jason, because a lot of times people feel like they learn all of these different things. They're exposed to all of this information. I know you was able to see Dr. Jack from a YouTube video, and at one point you weren't even ready to implement it because you were still focused on other areas of your life, or it wasn't like, okay, this is something I want to address. Sometimes it's I want to eat better. Sometimes it's I want to start moving. Like people have those slow things that they want to adopt when they're coming to like changing things, but you just can't change your life all over at one particular moment in so many different ways, or it won't become sustainable. So kind of talk about that aspect in regards to, of course, keeping your wife, but that aspect of starting slow with the changes and why that's so important.
Yeah. So basically, what Dr. Cruz recommends is seeing the sunrise every morning. So you do that. You set the proper circadian cycle inside your brain, inside your eye, and then from there, well, when you are doing the sunrise, you want to be grounded. So feet barefoot in the grass, sand. Um, the only place that it doesn't work is like asphalt, so that you won't be conductive in that regard. So everything that basically electrons inside of us are basically like our energy currency. So if we lose too many electrons, then that's when the inflammatory cascade starts. So grounding is one of the best ways to get that back. So seeing the sunrise, grounding, those were the first health habit I implemented. And then the first probably disease habit that I started to take away was I started to change my indoor light environment. So I switched all my, I switched all my bulbs to like a incandescent orange or amber or red light. And now the good thing is, because that it doesn't give off much light, so they have companies that give like amber light, because my wife can't see with those incandescents on. So we had to switch to like an amber light, which gives a little bit more light. And then also putting on the blue blockers at night. So blue blockers are basically, they're either yellow, orange, or red. And when you put them on, they block certain frequencies of light, because artificial light at night is the most damaging to us. Because basically it's like the typical lights that you see, like overhead lights that most people have, the lights you see in like grocery stores or like businesses, they typically give off a color frequency of anywhere between 5,500 to 6,500 Kelvin. And so when you're looking at that at 6 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., it's basically giving the brain the signal it's 12 o'clock, it's 1 p.m., which when you're supposed to be winding down for sleep, that's an issue. So that's going to spike the cortisol, lower the melatonin, and then we can't actually get into the deeper stages of sleep. So starting with the sunrise, grounding, and then blocking that light. And then I also changed the color temperatures on my phone, so it's more red. So I have a video, improvementwarriorfitness.com/red phone, that will show you how to basically take your phone from like the normal color it is to a more soothing color, so to speak. because it said that we look at our phone approximately 100 to 150 times a day. So that's 100 to 150 times the brain is getting the message. It's 12 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock. Plus, there's downstream effects with blue light. So it affects melatonin. It affects DHA. It affects our dopamine levels, all that stuff. So those were the first steps that I basically made.
I like that, and I honestly don't feel like it was too costly to make those first
Nope.
few steps. Like it
First
didn't
part's
seem
free.
like a high ticket price in regards to that. One, just really practicing grounding, being barefoot and really allowing those electrons to be that energetic currency that your body was created to have. But then also just seeing the sunlight with that naked eye and really kind of activating and getting the body right for the day. Which everyone, I believe, deserves. But even taking it down and identifying that disease habit with the indoor light environment bulbs, like I really appreciate kind of even giving us some of the colors that would be best. And then what worked with other people in the house with being able to see and adapt to the health of the household as a whole, and not just Jason, but everybody else, because it truly does affect things. And let's kind of go there, Jason. We talked about it before. The myth was that if you're overweight, or you have some chronic condition, the first thing is always diet and exercise. Why do you really believe that that's the wrong approach, and what should people do instead, especially coming from a former gym owner who was all about the nutrition and the fitness?
Yes. So, yeah, I always say, if you want to lose weight, don't start with diet and don't start with workouts. But that's typically what we've been ingrained to do. So the calories in, calories out model. So eat more, move less. That's kind of what we've been taught. I mean, obviously, January, that's when it gets really big and you see all the advertising for gyms and weight loss centers and all that stuff. But when you do that, when you eat less and exercise more, both of those are stresses to the body. So we're supposed to have stress, but it's supposed to be incremental at a time. We're not supposed to just jump into something like super, super extreme. Like I always say, do you ever wonder why there's never a reunion show for The Biggest Loser? And it's because they pretty much gained all the weight back, and their resting metabolic rate was lowered, I think 800 calories and whatnot. And I'm sure if you asked most of those people, they would have never went on the show in the first place. But
I never thought about that.
Yeah. So
I mean, I never watched the show. Some people have watched it and it's been motivating. Like I'm never going to get to that point, but I never even realized that there wasn't an alumni, or where are they now when it comes to after losing the weight with The Biggest Loser. That makes sense. I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if y'all ever thought about that. Drop it in the comments. If you're catching the video version here on YouTube. And make sure you subscribe, because Jason is giving us some great vibes. But make sure you subscribe to the channel. Check the show notes to make sure you link with Jason as well. And then if you listen on your favorite podcast distribution platform, rate the show, but also give it a rating. But we want to hear from you. Have you ever thought about why The Biggest Loser never had an alumni, or where are they now when it comes to their journey? But go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. So, with low calorie diets, 1,200 calories, 1,400 calories, 1,600 calories. It's usually that's too little for like the average adult to go through, because you have to think of calories as energy as well. So if you're only eating 1,200 calories, you're not getting enough energy. And we're supposed to get approximately, all food breaks down to electrons, and we're supposed to get about 40% of our electrons from food, and then 60% from nature. So like grounding with the sun and whatnot. But when you're just relying on the food and you stay most of your days indoors, you're not going to get enough electrons to power you through the day. So that's kind of why the keto diet is a good diet, because it's basically stuffing more electrons in you, because the number 2 source of electrons is from fat, from good sources of fat. So like avocado, coconut oil, butter, whatnot. So that's basically putting the fat in there, or putting the electrons back in. So people get a surge of electrons. But I always say any diet without the sun is going to be a failing diet. So it goes back to my Band-Aid analogy and whatnot.
I like that. Any diet with the sun, without the sun. And that makes sense if we're getting 60% should be coming from nature, from that itself. So you're kind of actually robbing yourself of it, unless you're out probably getting in outside exercises. And I think that's why, I don't know, I think like the 75 hard, like you have to do a certain amount of things outside, exercises outside. I never did it, so I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. But can you talk about movement outside, or is it really just getting in that direct sunlight that you're looking at? Like, what does it mean when you're outside?
I think we're gonna have a guest here on this podcast.
Okay.
1 second.
And y'all, while we're getting our special guests to show up, again, make sure. Oh,
this is my son, buddy.
Oh,
this is Jovonnie or Monkey.
Your son?
Son, buddy.
Your son, buddy. Got it. That makes sense. Your son, buddy. Okay, I like it. So when you think about even spending time with your son, buddy, like being outside, what do those activities look like to try to get that 60% in when it comes to your nature and into the natural, energetic energy that you're getting out of nature to get that 60%? But I also like that you said fats was number 2. What's number 1 in regards to the electron, energetic foods that we should be consuming to help us get that 40%?
That would be DHA. So that's the omega-3 seafood. DHA has very special capabilities. So we don't really use it as like the typical energy, like if you were to eat like a fat or a piece of bacon or something like that. So DHA actually helps you collect the electrons, and it actually takes sunlight and it basically turns it into an electric current inside of your body. So Robert O. Becker found that all living things create a DC electric current inside of our body. And that is basically like our healing power during the day. And then when we sleep, it regenerates and we have other things to help us regenerate. But basically, I like to think of it as it's like our Wolverine power, except it's not as strong. If you get stabbed, you're going to be in big trouble. So,
okay, so your omega-3s and your seafood. So can you only get that DHA from seafood? Can you get it from anything else? Is it like the nori, seaweed, or maybe like the plant-based eaters?
It is hard. It's very hard to convert like algae based, because the DHA we want it in the SN2 position. So that's going to make it more planar. So that way it's going to get into the brain and the central nervous system.
Okay.
If you get it from other sources other than seafood, it'll get into the cell membranes. It'll do all the other protective stuff that most people talk about. But we want it in basically the eye, the brain, and the central nervous system. So I have like things I recommend. So if you follow me on social media, I have like different hashtags I put at the end of my things. So DHA with Yun, and I go very deep into DHA. I've done a whole webinar on it and whatnot. But
DHA with Yun. And if y'all are listening, it is YUN. All right, YUN, DHA with Young. That hashtag, check it out, and you'll be able to see what that series looks like in regards to his content. All right, so let's kind of get into, I think you were telling me about the foods, the energy, why that was such a myth. But you also talked about, because we're learning a lot with the DHA and everything else. So we're students and you're teaching us about this aspect of why the sun is so important. So when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, is what you kind of came up with, or was your revelation, because you weren't ready back in 2013 when you first heard from Dr. Jack. But over time, you started to realize, okay, this is something that I'm ready to tap into. So let's kind of talk about, what did the teacher teach you about health that no one else had?
It started with the circadian biology, and that it's more about the light. Like your light environment is more important than the food and exercise that you do. So, in regards to that, so like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like the first things that I did was the sunrise and the grounding, and then at night it was changing the artificial lights. Um, so then it was a quick turnaround, because I actually did it wrong. Because when I did the sunrise, I waited till the sun came into my backyard, which was sunrise was over by that time. But I still felt amazing. Eventually, I course corrected and changed it, and eventually got the sunrise. But my issue was I cared too much what other people thought of me back then. So that's got something to do with lower dopamine levels and whatnot. But once you start seeing the sunrise, seeing more sun, because the sun is the only thing that can actually regulate the proper amount of dopamine. Any other way that we get it, it's either going to be too little or too much. Even like highly driven people, they'll go, rise and grind, all that stuff. But sometimes it just fails. So like the ultimate dopamine high is like cocaine or heroin addicts, and then they have the ultimate low as well. So they're super high, super rung, and then they're super low, and they're looking for their next thing. But obviously, we know that comes with certain issues and whatnot. But yeah, eventually, I the more I did it, the more I felt better, and the more I just didn't care what other people think, because they're going to do their thing. I'm going to do mine. If somebody's interested in what I do, they'll ask me. So I've had a few people ask me. So I live in a neighborhood that's not super high dopamine, so to speak.
I got you. I really love the fact that you said you cared too much about what other people think. And I feel like that's what keeps some people stuck from truly embracing a healing journey that is theirs. Like what it looked like for me, what it looked like for you, two totally different things. And while you did have some hormonal imbalances, things that were just kind of like, okay, what's really going on? Like my normal routine, my normal formula is no longer working and something is off. And for me, it was being diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, adenomyosis, endometriosis, and then they found 2 small fibroids at the time of my surgery. I didn't know what was going on inside of my body. Like I thought I was okay. Like you, I thought it was getting enough movement, of the body. Be mindful of what you're eating, and that could just vary so much differently, because what I need to eat is totally different from what someone else might need to eat. But if we're only taught this general level of nutrition, we don't really know exactly what our body needs, and we don't, really explore and figure out what's happening and receive the messages that our body is giving us. But speaking about that polycystic ovarian syndrome and the fibroids, the hormonal imbalances, it was something we talked about, and it was the insulin resistance. And we were kind of talking about how you don't really think that insulin is the problem. It was really like a leptin problem. What does leptin do, and why is it the real starting point for healing before we even start addressing the insulin?
Well, so leptin is the master hormone. So if insulin resistance is present, then leptin resistance started first. So if you address leptin, you're going to address insulin and a host of other hormones. So leptin is basically, it's the controller of energy metabolism. So basically it enters the brain around 12 to 2 a.m., enters the hypothalamus to basically get the energy status of the body. Our body wants to burn fat. So we want to be like the most efficient fat burning machine, because even if you're like 10% body fat, you have enough body fat to last days. But if it goes in and it senses like you ate too late, or you did something circadianly wrong, you were staring at blue light, watching TV all day without the blue blockers or anything, then it's going to cortisol is going to rise, and then leptin's not going to be able to do its thing. So you want to basically get control of leptin, and it starts in the morning. So like, people don't think about it, but sunrise is probably one of the best things for your sleep, because it's going to affect melatonin. It's going to affect all the other hormones throughout the day. But the thing with leptin is, and I've done a leptin reset transformation and whatnot. I have the hashtag leptin with Yun as well. But basically it's seeing the sunrise and then getting a good breakfast in after that sunrise. Because like the easiest way to, so we're basically clocks in all of our body. All of our genes, they've got a peripheral clock in front of them. But remember, our SCN is our master clock, so that clock has to run faster than all the other clocks. But the easiest clocks to unsync is going to be your brain clock and your brain and eye clock to your gut and liver clock. So basically your metabolism, because we do pretty much modern human things all the time. So we can eat at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., which is one of the things that I did when I had my my gym and whatnot. So just another circadian mismatch that I engaged in a lot. But we can eat like 6 or 7 times a day. Another thing that I recommended people do, which was not the wisest thing, because it actually destroys leptin. It's basically like driving a car from Los Angeles to New York with a broken fuel gauge. So you never actually know when you're hungry. You just have to guess, and you have to guess how much to fill in, and you have to guess when you're hungry. And basically, when you're living that way, you basically are run by a clock, like a actual physical clock. So it's like, it's 10 a.m. It's time for my mid-morning snack. It's 1 p.m. It's time for lunch. It's 4 p.m. It's time for my mid-afternoon snack and whatnot. So that destroys leptin, because it's not able to tell the body when it's actually hungry and when it actually needs food and whatnot.
So that's an alignment message right there, Jason. Like, too many times it's like waiting till the body kind of allows you to know when it's time to eat, when it's time to kind of do certain things, versus just programming it in your phone to make an alarm go off to say, this is when I should be eating, this time, that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's important, because I don't think, and sometimes it's people who don't eat enough that try to put themselves on a schedule to say, okay, I could go all day without eating, or I could go all day with just one meal. Is that still okay? Because that's what their body is kind of naturally saying, or where's that middle ground, Jason, in regards?
Eventually, once the person resets their circadian rhythm, their circadian
So they need
clock,
to reset first.
Yeah. You'll typically, like, you'll get hungry around breakfast time, because that's like the setter of the circadian rhythm, and the first food is also another setter of the rhythm. But typically breakfast, lunch, dinner, and eventually as you get better and as your body kind of realigns itself, then those meals will start to get smaller. Once you're outside, you don't need as much food because red light from the sun basically is like it's energy. You're basically like eating sunlight, so to speak. So,
gotcha. So that's almost like your first meal of the day. So don't miss it.
yeah.
Get out there and get it. Okay, I got you. All right. So I want to ask first, and we'll get off the leptin. What are the early signs that someone might be leptin resistant and not even know it?
Lack of energy,
Okay.
sleep issues. The big ones is overweight or underweight. So, I mean, even like the bodybuilders or the fitness models who are on stage at their competition level, I would consider them leptin resistant because they basically have been screwing with their macros to get down to that level. So the body can't actually tell what the energy status is. Like morbidly obese and anorexic is leptin resistant, just different ways. Sleep issues, I think I mentioned that. Energy issues, not being able to sweat is another one. And that's all that's coming to me right now. But
that's good. So leptin resistance, y'all. Leptin, Leptin. And again, it's hashtag leptin with Yun, YUN, if you want to check out his leptin reset. But what it could look like for you is lack of energy, sleep issues, overweight or underweight, anorexic, morbidly obese, and then the lack of sweating when typically you would normally sweat are just some signs that it could potentially be leptin resistance. Jason, what diseases are really just symptoms of a deeper mitochondrial dysfunction that we probably don't even realize there's that connection?
Well, Dr. Doug Wallace is like the leading researcher on mitochondrial health, and he says anywhere between 80 to 85%. And then Dr. Cruz takes it a step further. He's up there 95, 97%. So, I mean, it's basically any type of disease, you're going to have mitochondrial health issues. And if you focus on the circadian rhythm, the mitochondria will naturally come along because that's basically our engine. And if the engine goes bad, then it doesn't really matter what type of fuel you're putting in or what type of workouts you're doing or anything like that. You got to take care of the engine, because if that fails, then you don't go anywhere.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm with it. So let's kind of think about let's kind of make this real. So if someone's listening right now and they're struggling with fatigue, weight gain, burnout, walk us through like a simple circadian health day. What would you tell us to do first, and kind of let us know what's the minimum effective dose to be able to do this effectively?
Well, it is going to depend on the season, where the person is on the globe, latitude wise, because obviously what you're going to do in the summer is going to be radically different than what you're going to do in the winter. But I'm in Ohio, so I'm in the summer. But basically, first thing I always do, sunrise with my dog, grounded, as naked as I can be, naked eyes. And then I typically will come home. I'll typically make my breakfast and whatnot. I'll try to eat as much of it outside as I can. And from there, I typically start waking my kids up if they haven't woke up themselves. And then I try to get them on a what I call a UVA walk. So UV light is also very important. It's what shuts off certain hormones that the sunrise turned on. And so we go on that walk, and then I'm typically doing other things. So watering the plants in my garden, Sometimes I'll take an ice bath. Yeah, and then usually later on that day, I'll set up my outdoor office like this if it's not raining or whatnot. Typically, I'll do my workout in the morning. I like to do it in the morning, but studies have shown that like muscle and cardio and oxygenation happens like 3 to 5 p.m. I typically don't like to do that because it's usually too hot by then. But yeah, so.
I typically like to move and groove in the mornings. Like it just feels so much good to start my day off with like movement in the morning. I like to walk with Spencer. The sun is definitely coming down. But I get to see the sun rise, so to speak. Wasn't necessarily looking at it like how you were. And I definitely got my shoes on as we're hitting the different asphalt, the pavement. But I really like that you talked about like 3 to 5 p.m. is ideal. It's definitely hot. By that time, the work day, I feel like kind of has already drained me energetically. Yeah. And if anything, I could see myself potentially doing like maybe a Pilates or yoga or a stretch video, or maybe just dancing, like turning on some music or maybe some dance videos and moving in that type of way, 3 to 5, but getting in that whole body, like just I have to show up for myself before I can show up for a job or work or whatever like that. It was mostly the walking in the morning. And you talked about movement in the morning as well, back in the day, how you had that routine as a fitness owner, gym trainer, getting those classes started at 5:15 for the early risers. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about that outside office. Like, what does it look like to have that outside office? And I'm really glad that you're showing us so many different things we could be doing outside to get that 60% and that 40% to really do everything you can. Back when we talked about that electronic energy.
Yeah, so the office is basically, well, I set it up differently depending on what computer I bring out. So I've got my laptop out today, but sometimes I'll bring out my iMac, which is my desktop computer, and then I just got a daylight computer, which is a blue light free tablet, basically from the Daylight Computing Company. Really like that, but there's certain things I can't do. There's no video camera on it, which is like my biggest pet peeve against it. But otherwise, it's my favorite computer. So with my laptop, it's just sitting on it's like a chair that you would use at your kitchen table, and then under that I have like it's kind of like a standing desk type of thing, and on top of that is my laptop. And so my standing desk is basically like it's my carry-on. So everything that I carry out here, so like my planner, the books I'm going to be reading, I have a breathing thing that I do every once in a while. So it's a Bas Rutan breathing thing. So when you suck in on it, it's basically got a restricted thing. So I'll show you one breath here. So it's really hard to suck in. So it's going to strengthen your lungs and whatnot. Got that. I've got my toe spreaders on my feet. And what else is out here? My
toe spreaders?
Yeah, toe spreaders.
Okay.
Yoga toes is what I use. So it just spreads the toes because they're not supposed to be stuck together. So shoes is something we didn't talk about, but right, like regular shoes will kill you basically if you're not barefoot enough. So
what percentage should you be barefoot throughout the day to try to?
As much as possible, but I mean, there's certain things that you can do. So there's like different toe socks, and they're making like wider, because like the modern shoe is completely off kilter because it's smaller on the front part when it should be wider on the front part and then smaller on the back part.
So are you talking about like the shoes that look like people just kind of have on socks? Are you talking about those that where you can kind of put them? It's almost like gloves or like that you would see on your hand, but for
Yeah,
people's, and they kind of
yeah.
walk
It's
around,
got
look
like
like,
each of the toes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's more of the footwear that you should kind of want to get into versus the kind that.
Yeah, and they make barefoot shoes. So the one of the other problems is the heel on the shoe. They say for every inch that you have a heel, to be in proper alignment, you need to be 11 degrees forward. So most men's dress shoes is like 1.5 inches. So you'd have to be like 15, 16, 17 inches or degrees forward, and you would have to stay in that position and walk in that position to be in proper alignment. And then ladies with their pumps and whatnot, they go even higher. Um, so it's just doing small things at a time, just trying to go barefoot as much as you can, but check out barefoot shoes, um, the toe socks and whatnot. So
Okay, I like that, and we're getting a lot of value, y'all. I hope y'all drop vibe in the comments if you learned something, at least 2 things from Jason's experience and from this conversation in the comments. But Jason, I love the barefoot shoes, the toe socks, the importance of all of that, and why to consider it in regards to your feet and your foot care. But even just being outside, like, is there certain precautions people should be taking in regards to like the sunlight? Is it too much sun? Is it a way that it could be damaging to your health? I kind of wanted to talk about that.
Yep.
And then I don't know if we really hit the AirPods or not.
Okay. Yeah, and I have a 17-step guidebook that goes over this if you want to share that out. But basically, like if somebody was living an indoor life and they basically would do what I'm doing, they're going to get severely burnt. So you've got to build up what we call the solar callus. So you do that with like early morning sunlight and also later evening sunlight, like right before sunset and sunset. So that's got more red light, so it's going to help build the solar callus, help build the melanin, and that will allow you to be out in the stronger sun where the UV is higher. So when the UV is higher, you're going to be making more vitamin D and whatnot. So we've got an epidemic of low vitamin D. So it is an issue, but you don't want to do sunscreen or anything like that. Another hashtag sunscreen with Yun. I cover that quite in depth, and I've done a podcast on it and whatnot. But yeah, you just want to build up that solar callus so you're naturally able to take it in, because melanin is supposed to be our natural sunscreen. It absorbs like 99.9% of all frequencies, and it basically stores that light as energy and to be either used immediately, or it stores it for when you actually need it. So it's the reason we don't need sunscreen. I mean, the sun is free, but corporations want you to get it.
That's a definitely interesting conversation and hashtag to have, because we've heard so much difference when it comes to utilizing sunscreen or utilizing certain body butters that have certain ingredients that naturally is a sunscreen or a protector of the skin when it comes to sun. So I'm really interested in that, and definitely you could definitely share that link with me, and I'll put that in the show notes for people to check out with that guidebook that you have as well to give that value. One thing that made me think of, because I'm a person who doesn't do well with sun, like shades, and I see you don't have any on, is that when you talk about was it the beta blockers or something like that? Is that like glassware, things that you're putting over your eyes or on your eyes? Is it similar to shades? And what's the adjustment like when having to utilize those things and keep them
on? Typically after sunset is a good time, or if you're just going to be exposed to artificial light later in the day. But yeah, they're not so another hashtag, sunglasses with Yun. I cover those many times as well. And yeah, so typically after sunset after the sun goes down, blue blockers go on, or a little bit before it. Like if you have to work on a computer, typically keep them on, and you don't have a screen filter on your screen or anything like that. But yeah, so those, yeah, they got different lenses. So like yellow is more for like day. Orange is like kind of like an in between. So it blocks up to 500 nanometers. But if you have like eye issues, if you have myopia really bad, so nearsightedness, I would typically go with the red lens at night, because I had LASIK, which was I learned since then it wasn't a good idea, but so I typically take full precautions with my eyes now.
Gotcha. That sounds good. So if someone was to commit to one sunrise, one barefoot walk, and one seasonal food swap a day for 30 days, what kind of transformation might they see?
Well, it's not just one sunrise, so it would have to be. You got to be, as I'm sure you talk to your clients, your listeners. It's all about consistency.
No, for
So
30 days. One
oh,
sunrise, one barefoot walk, one
okay,
seasonal food swap for 30
okay.
days. What would be that transformation?
Pretty dramatic. I mean, I turned my whole outlook around in less than 30 days. So the hormone issue went away. Like I slept better, all that stuff. It just, yeah, it was magic.
So doing those three things in 30 days could be
Yeah,
a drastic change.
yeah, I would say trying to get at least 30 minutes to an hour, especially when it's warmer for the grounding. And obviously you'll be in the sun as well. But periodic breaks throughout the day so you can reset the circadian rhythm and whatnot.
Okay, I'm with it. All right, so last two questions. Talk to the girl dads, the father figures, male role models. When it comes to period pain, pelvic pain, infertility issues, how could men, fathers, partners be more supportive in that space when supporting others who may or may not have endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroids, or polycystic ovarian syndrome?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, sunlight has been shown to improve pretty much all conditions. There is I'm basically completely naked except for a Kaniki bathing suit on. So that is a tan-through bathing suit. So basically, if you're having fertility issues, getting your private parts out in the sun, obviously completely bare naked would be completely best, but some areas you can't do that. Like I would be arrested if I was completely naked here. So a Kaniki is the next best thing from there.
Okay, so with your significant other, partner, spouse, y'all could do more sunbathing together,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that would definitely be supportive. So let's say with the younger ones, maybe your daughter, what would be some of those things that you might want to suggest with them? Or is it just getting more sunlight, getting them outside, helping them with grounding?
Yeah, with the kids, it's kind of like pulling teeth sometimes, but it's So they want certain things. So if they want screen time, then they've got to come outside. They've got to do certain activities and whatnot. So yeah,
So let's say I don't know if you have a daughter. Do you have a daughter, Jason?
Yeah, I do. 11.
So if your daughter was experiencing heavy periods, cramping, what would you do to better support her, knowing what you know as a quantum coach? And
I just start with more sunlight, trying to mitigate as much of the non-native EMF as possible. So if AirPods, nope. Apple Watches, nope. Phone, always speakerphone, never on the head. All that stuff. When she does watch TV, she has to wear blue blockers and whatnot. So it's just getting more natural stuff in and trying to mitigate as much as you can the man-made stuff.
I like that because I've never had that as a response for people to help support others with period pain, pelvic pain, things of that nature, to even consider those other areas that you just spoke on. So I appreciate that, Jason. So if you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you all eat?
They have to be dead?
No.
No.
People making history today. We just made history today on this episode.
Absolutely. It would be Sylvester Stallone.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. So we didn't talk about it, but I went through depression, anxiety, thoughts of suicide earlier in my mid-20s. But yeah, it would be him. What would we eat? Probably whatever he wants. Probably Italian, since he's Italian.
Okay, so something Italian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm appreciative of that. All right, so let everybody know where they could find you and connect with you.
It's so I'm on social media. Sun. Oh, you okay? Sun.yun.jason on Instagram and Facebook. Twitter and YouTube, I am Yun Training, and the website is improvementwarriorfitness.com. So it's currently going through a rehaul, so it will be. You can find all kinds of different things. My blog has some pretty good articles up there as well in regards to this stuff.
I love it. All right, so give anybody a final message with Yun here on the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast.
It's just one thing at a time. Just don't overdo it. Just implement one thing at a time. Stay consistent with it, and you will see results with your circadian biology.
I love it, y'all. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, host of the Empowered Place, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all check the show notes for all the ways that you can vibe and get value from my journey and Jason's journey. And we hope that you got something out of this episode. But thanks for vibing with us, y'all.